handled a lot of hiring within the relocation department. And I also handled a number of corporate accounts. So everything from iLeads to corporate inventory to REO and foreclosures when we had those back in 2007 to 2009. And from there, I was an assistant to one of the top 10 realtors in Houston and became a buyer's agent for her. And I handled a lot of her hiring of agents to her team. And I also helped to onboard and train those agents when they would join the team. After that, I started a business development division for another broker in Houston and was responsible for hiring administration, sales staff, and marketing staff. And I moved to Austin in 2018, and I joined Keller Williams when I moved. I was there for a little over a year, and then I was a branch manager for another brokerage here in Austin, where I hired dozens of realtors over the course of a year. And now I'm back with Keller Williams with Jennifer, and so that's why I'm talking to you about hiring. I've done a lot of it, and I've had great hires, I've had bad hires, I've learned a lot along the way, and Keller Williams career visioning model has really really impacted the way I view hiring. And so I'm excited to share a little bit about that with you today. Jen, do you want to speak a little bit about yourself?
Sure. And I can also say I personally worked with Vanessa when I was a realtor. So I know she's fantastic. That's why we wanted to bring her back here so badly and help us with this new endeavor with shared services that we're so excited about. For those of you who don't know me, if you're in one of the other market centers, I'm Jen Lewis. I'm a team leader at the Austin Southwest. I'm also the director of portfolio, our luxury office. So the Austin portfolio office. And I sold real estate for about 7 years. I've been in leadership for about a year. During that time, I sold over 450 houses. I hired people, I hired showing assistants, I had an admin at one point. And of course, as you all know, as now the team leader here at the Austin Southwest, I've been a part of over, my gosh, I think Ann can tell me the total number, but over 300 agents this year that we've hired on to work with us here at the Southwest. And I do a lot of coaching and assisting folks with hiring their first hire and or their second, third, fourth. So for those of you who are interested, definitely seek out either me or your team leader for additional help. And of course, Vanessa, when we get all these services up and running in hopefully first quarter of 2021.
That's the plan. All right, thanks, Jen. So we are all here today because you guys are thinking about or you're ready to make your first hire. So first of all, congratulations getting to this point of your business where you know that you can do more with the right hire is really incredible. It's the dream, right? You've closed deals, you've got a pipeline going, and you're likely starting to feel overwhelmed and overworked. So go you. Today, we're going to put you guys back in control, not only of your business, but of just the trajectory of your life, if you're feeling very overwhelmed at this point. So we're going to work and give you a plan. We're going to give you tools and a system to get you that first hire so that you can start climbing to your next ceiling. So this is really the perfect quote for today. I love a good Zig Ziglar quote. You were born to win, but to be a winner, you must plan to win, prepare to win, and expect to win. And that's exactly what we're going to do today. We're going to get you your plan, get you prepared, and help you set the expectations that you need to win with your first hire. So we've got a lot to cover. This is our agenda. We're going to cover everything from the how-tos to the growth plan when you have your first hire. So let's get to it. You guys feel free to pop questions in the chat. Jen, would you mind monitoring the chat? I can't see it from my share screen.
Yeah, no problem.
Awesome. And then after slides, when we cover a lot of material, I'll pause and ask if there's any questions. Feel free to come off mute and ask questions as we go through this as well. All right. So let's get started. Very few agents start their career with an admin assistant, right? You guys, when you start, it's just you, which according to the MREA team, you're a level 1 team. It's you and you alone. So what we're talking about today is moving you to a level 2 team. So in order to make this move, there's a couple things that are identifiers that you're ready to make that move. You should be pushing a ceiling of productivity, meaning that your money making activity hours are starting to take a hit from administrative and other non-money making activities. Another way to look at this as a level one team is you're really operating entrepreneurially. And when you can no longer maintain or break through your current pace, it's time for you to move to more of a purposeful perspective, or P. So we call this E to P. And Jen is really the E to P master. So I'm going to let her speak a little bit more on this.
Sure. Thanks for saying I'm a master of that. I know how hard to hit that ceiling and how hard it hurts my head when I do. What E to P really means to you guys is when you are stressed, when you randomly cry for no reason because someone said something that set you off that day, when you can't sleep because your mind is racing constantly about all the things that you either didn't get to that day, know you have to do the next day. These are all signs that you have hit a ceiling. And when you hit a ceiling, you either need a tool, a system, or a person in order to break past where you are. There's just no more you can give in that day and actually still be successful and have a balanced life, right? We can't work 100 hours a week every week of our lives. That would be awful for all of us. And so in order to get to that next place, as Vanessa said, you've got to break through that ceiling, and really monitor what that looks like for you. Where are you in your life? It's different for everyone, and the way that you react when you hit a ceiling is very different for everyone as well. But notice any of those key things that change for you: emotional things, habit changes, sleep patterns. That is a sure sign that you no longer can do it entrepreneurially. You have to have that tool, system, or person to go to the next level.
That's perfect. And today we're really going to focus on the person, right? And that person can bring other tools and systems with them. So if you can't alleviate that stress with a tool or a system, that's what we're talking about today with a person. So a few things, in order to be ready for your first hire, your numbers have to be in line, right? We're talking about red light, green light here. So you should be consistently producing revenue to justify a long-term full-time hire, right? And when you're ready to do this, one of the best pieces of advice I've heard is you want to set aside the first 3 months of that person's salary into an account. And one way you're going to know if they are talent is by day 90, if they're putting money back into that account and they're starting to pay for themselves. So I love that idea. This is an investment. You want to approach this from a very methodical way, which is sometimes the antithesis of how we operate our business. But if you follow these steps the first time, it's going to alleviate a lot of pain down the line. So we're going to be referencing a lot of materials today. I have a workbook that I have a link to at the end of this presentation for a Google Drive. And there's a lot of resources there. I pulled them all from KW Connect. So I do want to stop and show you guys where you can also find these materials in addition to the workbook. So if you go to, oh, come on now, that's not what I want to do. There we go. KW Connect. If you haven't visited the site before, I recommend it. I visit it daily. But if you go to resources and go to leverage, this is where the majority of the documents that I may reference today are found. So you've got your CV documents, leverage class documents, you have org charts for agent teams, job profiles for agent teams, onboarding documents. So when you're making your first hire, you're really going to live in this website quite a bit and in the workbook that we've provided for you guys. So wanted to make sure I pointed that out. All right, moving back to our presentation. Okay. All right, so we've established that you're ready to take your business to a level 2 team. Let's go ahead and start tackling the what your first hire is going to achieve for you, what they will focus on to create a symbiotic relationship that makes you both thankful and successful, right? So Let's be really clear. When we're talking about your first hire, we're talking about an administrative assistant. If we follow the MREA model, we know that your first hire should be an administrative assistant that can grow to an executive assistant, which will then oversee your future administrative hires. So, with this first hire, you're going to get time back from the administrative bog and that 80% of running a real estate business. And this is going to allow you to focus on your 20% again. So that includes, first and foremost, your money making activities, more lead gen, more listings, more contracts, more closings, more money, right? And as a level 2 team, you're going to be taking on the accountability and the growth plan for your hire. So, with the right hire, it's an upfront investment to ensure that they're properly trained and primed for success. But afterwards, the accountability and growth piece shouldn't be a time suck for you. It should be frequent, brief, and productive to move your business forward. So, another thing that I think becomes your focus is mastery. And this is something I don't feel gets discussed enough in conversations about what you get when you make the right first hire. So, mastery can include taking career visioning again, it can include earning a designation, getting through that book list to make you a better human, a better business leader. So, I think your focus is on those money making activities, the accountability and growth, and the mastery piece for yourself. So your hire's focus is getting you on the path to being $1 million agent. Your 80% becomes their 20%. So they start to build those checklists, workflows, and ensuring that your standard of service is upheld with clients, even as you sign on more. So the right hire is going to come to you during their 411 or their accountability time and say, hey, I noticed we didn't have an effective way to track sign inventory, or I noticed we don't have everybody's birthdays in command. I came up with this solution. Can we go ahead and implement it? So they're going to really start to bring solutions to your business. I'm going to pause. I'm seeing quite a bit here. Oh, Jen's just
Oh, it's
doing
yeah.
awesome. Love
Putting
it.
notes in the chat box. And to that point, I think too many of our folks that I talk to on a regular basis, you hire somebody and you say, oh, well, I think they're going to be great. You love them. It's wonderful. And yet they're not showing the results. So you have to make the time, number one, to not be a seagull sort of manager where you just swoop in, pick up a little bit of water and fish, and then swoop back out again, right? That's the seagull manager. You've got to be able to take the time to set the expectations. And what is that 80%, right? What are those 80% of the things that you do every day that you should not be doing because it's not producing you the results, and getting a lot of clarity around that. So I love also that Vanessa focused on the mastery part because it is, right? We want to keep growing, and if you've taken bold, you only grow to the extent that, or your business can only grow to the extent that you do. So if you're not growing, you're not going to classes, you're not continuing to lift your leadership lid, then you're not also progressing the way you would want to when you've hired another human to work for you. I love
Absolutely. Absolutely. So yeah, their focus becomes on building your systems, doing the day-to-day contract to close, the listing management, the marketing, handling the finances, running your office, right? And then together, this is where you guys grow together. So Jen talked about identifying that 80%, and that's the perfect segue to our next slide. So I think for a lot of us, we know we need help. We know we're busy, but it seems counterintuitive to slow down to speed up, right? So how do you even go about identifying that 80% that you should be giving to somebody else? So here's just a few quick tips to help you kind of create that missing person report that turns into a job description. So anytime you're doing a task that you know you should be delegating to somebody else, jot it down in your phone. Start a note on your phone and just jot down every task that you should be handing off to somebody else. Another thing you can do is take a look at your to-do list, and all of those items that never seem to get done. They're important, they would be great, but there's always something that seems to fall ahead of those on the priority list. So take things on those to-do list and move those on to a job description for your first hire. Another thing would be all those incredible ideas that you hear when you go to trainings or listen to top producers that you would love to implement in your business, but you don't have the time or resources for. Make a wish list. What would you love for your first hire to achieve for you? And then finally, kind of a wish list of services and offerings for your clients. What would the next level of service for your people look like? So if you do this the second that you start thinking about a hire, pretty soon you're going to have that missing person report and job description filled out completely.
Yeah. And y'all don't forget that we do lots and lots and lots of jobs as realtors that this person can take over. Another thing I hear a lot from agents who come asking how do they get leverage and where should they get it from? And oh, I don't have enough for that person to do. I would encourage you to do what Vanessa said here and make a note every time you're out on your phone because you are doing a lot of things. Every time you get in your car to do something that isn't a money making activity, that's something someone else could do for you. Every time you're taking notes on a call, but you should be driving somewhere else, is something someone else could do for you, right? You can three-way them into a conversation with a client, have them take notes for you so you can be driving to your next appointment. There are so many things I think agents forget because you're just going, right? We all put the pedal to the metal, we're going, and we forget what we can actually offload that would either make your life better or your business stronger.
Absolutely. So this is kind of how we plan for success. If we go to that Zig Ziglar quote, plan and prepare, this is the planning portion. So before we move on to the preparation portion, do you guys have any questions? Is there anything you'd like to ask before we move forward? Feel free to come
Yeah,
off.
can I ask a question?
Sure.
So, Vanessa, you and Jen, what are, if we can be specific, I mean, Jen has been a realtor, what are some of the things that we could start offloading? I know contract to close, but I'm at a stage where, even before we get to contract, there are just so many tasks, and I am overwhelmed. I don't know what I should and I can offload, and what kind of skill set this person should bring
Sure.
to help me with the stuff.
That's a great question. And I'll start and Jen can fill in for sure. I think everything from have them tell you which 10 people to call that day. Have them give you those 10 people to call. Have them prepare your buyer consults and your listing consults. Have them set out the map of properties that you're going to go view. Have them schedule the showings. All of those things leading up to the working with a buyer. And then, Jen, do you have anything to add to that?
Yeah, I mean, all the things, Sharmila, right? Like confirm my appointment for me. Hey, I need to send a note to so and so. I don't want to send it as a text. I want to send it as an email. They should be on call for you to pick up the phone when you're driving home from whatever other appointment that you're at to say, okay, here's what they said, here's what they wanted. I need to send them documents that reflect this, or I said that I would send them comps for XYZ neighborhood. That person should be taking those notes for you. Maybe you've already taught them how to run a search in the MLS. If you haven't, that's another thing you can do. There are, signs that need to be run, doors that need to be opened for HVAC people or stagers or plumbers, all of those things. Set up my open house for me on a Saturday. Go to Vanessa's point, my buyer presentation, I need 4 of them this week. They should have them printed out, ready to go. And, or if there's some way that you personalize them, you teach them how to do that and set you up for success for the week. So they should have a laundry list of stuff to do that you figure out on Sunday that you need done all week long. And then they're just there for you when you need, hey, fix this amendment for me. I'm going to tell you exactly what to put in there. If they're not licensed, be careful with that, right? But there are a lot of things that when you're driving around, you wish you could be doing. That's what that person should be doing for you.
Yep. And Kat popped into the chat and said pop buys and social media marketing. Pop buys for sure. Having them at least prepare them, having them ready to go, having them identify which houses you're going to pop by to when you're in the neighborhood that you're already going to be in. And for sure, your social media marketing as well.
Yeah. Think about, Sharmila, how many people that you know that have a birthday or an anniversary this week alone or this month. that admin can be getting into your Facebook, looking at all of the people that you know that have a birthday in the month of December or January, and helping you get a card out to them, putting a reminder on your calendar to call them. I mean, all of those little things that I think maybe make a wish list for a lot of people can become reality when you have an entire 40 hours of another human to help you during the week.
Great,
that
yeah, that's helpful, very much so.
Good. Any other questions before we move forward? Thank you, Sharmila. That was a great question. And sometimes it's the hardest thing sometimes is starting. The hardest thing, like when you write a paper or when you go to sit down and do anything, the hardest thing is just starting. And so if you can just start to brainstorm all of those things, like Jen said, you can fill up 40 hours relatively quick. All right, moving forward. So a goal without a plan is just a wish. You've likely heard this quote before, right? So it's not enough to know that you're ready to hire and to know that you should hire somebody who in theory is going to double your business. So the GPS or the 135 is the roadmap for your success with your business and with your first hire. So I've created a very like basic template of a 135 or a GPS. So here, oh, go ahead.
Kelly, did you have a question?
Oh, I didn't. Can y'all see me?
Can't see you, but
I've never done this before.
Oh,
So I have no idea what I'm doing.
oh, that's okay.
Can y'all see me? Because I can't.
No,
How do I get on here? I'm sorry.
it's okay. You can turn your video on, hopefully. I'm gonna go ahead and mute you though, so Vanessa can keep going, and I'll message you on the side.
Awesome. I love it. We're all learning in 2020. It's been a process for sure. We're just glad you're with us, Kelly. Okay. So you guys, I'm sure, are familiar with a GPS. GPS and 135 are interchangeable. So the idea behind a GPS, you have one big, hairy, audacious goal. You have 3 priorities to achieve it and 5 strategies for each priority, right? G, goal, P, priorities, S, strategies. And of course, our goals should be SMART, right? They need to be specific and measurable and attainable and relevant and time-based. So I've created a sample GPS for the team. So this is what you and your first hire are going to achieve together. So it's not enough to say that your big hairy goal is to double your business. No, we need to be specific. So if we close 24 closings in the last 12 months, the goal is to close 48 transactions for a 100% increase year over year. And then we break that down into what are the priorities that will help me ensure I reach this goal? And then what are the strategies that will ensure I hit this priority? So this is very, very simple, very rudimentary. So that is the team GPS. So let's see here. I want to make sure I don't skip this. Go ahead.
Example, I think it just goes back to Sharmila's question, right? Like once you know what your goals are for the year, you can actually look at that and go, okay, what could someone else help me with? So we talked about you have to have 10 people a day with the intention to set an appointment. Well, who are you going to call? You need a list. So what does that list look like? What is the thing you're calling about? Because we don't just call people to call them, right? We call with some sort of item of value, right? If it's tax season, we're calling about taxes. So what am I saying? What am I offering? What am I inviting somebody to? Or is this a true care call? That person can be putting that all together for you. They can be putting paperwork together for your appointment. So you can see as you go down the list, you can go, okay, I know that I need to be doing these things. What can an admin help me with that's on this list?
Yeah, absolutely. And like Jen said, there's some things here that will be up to you. And that like going on listing appointments, that is one of your money-making activities. But getting to talk to 10 people a day, that's something that your admin can help you with. Hosting a virtual market update, that's something your admin can help you with. So then if we look at a GPS for your hire, this is their 135. So you can see the goal is the same, the priorities are the same, but the strategies that they're going to achieve to help meet those priorities and goals are slightly different. So they're going to ensure that all of your leads have complete contact information. They're going to make sure every single lead is on a SMART plan. They're going to be sure you have pre-listing packets on hand at all times. completing contract to close, and preparing the information for that virtual market update. So you start to see where you have activities and they have activities that feed into the same priorities and goals.
Can I ask a quick question?
Sure.
So, a smart plan and all that, should your hire be already conversant with Command, or do you train them while they're on the job and you're kind of paying them, to learn Command? What are your thoughts on that?
I think finding an EA with Command experience is a bit of a unicorn. I mean, I think we have to remember that Command's still new. And so if you can find somebody who knows it, you're way ahead of the curve. But I think you should be prepared to spend the time to train them to learn the system.
And we have so much training available, Sharmila, including KWRI through Command offers something in the marketplace where you could actually pay, I think it's like $250 to have a specific plan of getting them through the training for Command without you. So if you have to leverage, also take that into account. You may need to leverage your training. We do so much at the office in regards to Command training. You can send them to that. You can send them to what KWI offers. You can send them to pretty much anything that's on KW Connect in regards to it. We've got great people like Nick Baldwin who are constantly, and Marty Miller, putting out YouTube videos about how to get through Command. Marty Miller has an entire 66-day video series, right? So you just send them out to learn it that way. And then once they've learned it, you can hone in on creating the customized pieces to your liking once they know how to use the tool.
And
I hope I can get them to use my camera. I'll hire them right now.
And we're going to talk about training as well. We're going to touch on that here in a little bit and get more into that. So one thing I do want to note in this example, I made your hire's big, hairy, audacious goal the same as the team's goal. That may not necessarily be the case. Their big goal for the year may be to create scalable systems or something else. But this is just a very, very simple example. So don't feel like everything has to be mirrored. The idea is that just all of the strategies and priorities should push to the one big main goal. Okay. All right. So using your hire's GPS, you then want to create their 30, 60, 90. So this is how they're going to learn to crawl, walk, run, or I love the example that Jen does of the 30 days is the I do, you watch, the 60 days is the you do, I watch, and the 90 days is you do on your own. So each one of the goals in the GPS should align with something in their 30, 60, 90. So if you find that there's goals in your 30, 60, 90 that aren't in the GPS or vice versa, you need to make sure that you're clear on what your goal is. Everything should feed from the top up or the bottom up. So from the 30, 60, 90 to the GPS, everything should be in line. So it also helps as a guide for you to create your hires training, which we're going to talk about later. So, I think it's important, and we touched on this earlier, to set your hire up for success. You can't just say, okay, go learn Command. I hear Marty Miller has great videos on YouTube, right? And set them free. This hire is a financial investment. And so training and consulting them the right way can't be emphasized enough. So really make sure your GPS in 30, 60, 90 create a straight line for what your hire will need to learn to accomplish the goals that you're setting. Okay. So 30-day goals are really centered around learning and connecting the dots of your business. So you're going to be spending a lot of time with your hire initially during time-blocked training sessions for this time frame. And then the 60-day area is where they start to create outlines of systems or make improvements on the pieces that you already have in place. And then around 90 days is where you should really start to see that momentum shift. You should see them paying money and value back in space to your business. So this would be a sample 30, 60, 90. in line with the GPS that we just did. So they're going to be learning, reviewing, and then you start to see creating, setting up, revising, and then development and creation.
That's right. And this is another place, Sharmila, where yes, you are going to be paying someone as they are learning things. However, this is up to everyone on this call to do it the way that works for them and allows you to hire the right talent for you. If you hire someone who already knows all these things, you're going to pay them more money because you don't have to spend the time teaching them how to do these particular items. If you hire someone new, but you think they have the capacity to be of strong help to you, then maybe you step up their pay throughout the 30, 60, 90-day initial hiring timeframe. So you don't have to 100% pay for everything right out the gate, but you should pay them something because they are spending their time learning so they will be able to do for you in the future.
Yeah, I think in CV, they refer to the 30, 60, 90 as the opportunity for your hire to earn their job, right? And this is a really good gauge for, you know, can they grasp the concepts in the first 30 days? In day 60, does it look like they can hit the goals? And then in day 90, are they starting to produce?
This is also why Gary, every time you hear Gary Keller talk about hiring, he'll say hire slow, fire fast, right? You hire slowly because you have to, this takes time. What Vanessa's showing you right now, like this takes a minute, right? You have to take a step back in your business, think about all the things you want them to do, and then break down how you're going to help them get trained on those items, and maybe call your team leader or call Vanessa or call somebody in our office to say, what leverage can I get from the office or from KW that I'm maybe missing? And then you're going to spend a little time actually with that person throughout each week through their first 30, 60, 90. And to Vanessa's point, if you hit 60 days and they are not creating things, they're not doing anything to actually start to move things forward because they haven't really taken the training as well as you thought that they would, and they aren't really a good match for you, and you can already feel that, this is also an opportunity to fire quickly. You've set the expectation up front that you're earning your job, as Vanessa said, in your 30, 60, 90. So if you tell them that, they are not going to be able to sit back on their laurels and go, great, I'm hired, I'm good to go, I'm going to make this money, it's going to be fine. No, you are setting the expectation every 30 days. We're going to reevaluate whether we're actually going to stay in business together until you hit the 90-day mark.
Absolutely. Okay, so we're going to move on from here and start to talk about compensation models. Are there any questions on GPS or 30, 60, 90 before we do that? Going once, going twice.
There was one question. I answered it in the chat box. If we already have a contract to close person that charges by the transaction, does it make sense to keep them and free up more time for the admin? My response was, depends on if you have enough for the admin without also doing transaction coordination. You may need to have them monitor what the transaction coordinator does as part of your leverage training. But I think anything you can take back, dollars you're spending somewhere else, especially if you don't feel like you have enough for them to do without that, I would highly encourage that you take it back.
Yeah, agreed. All right, moving forward. Okay, so I pulled this directly from MREA. These are compensation structures. So you have options when it comes to how you compensate your hire. These are just the 9 that are outlined in MREA. And I don't want to belabor these except to say that you want to have a very clear idea of compensation in place before you start your search. So this should be part of your plan and prepare to win. Have the figure in your head that this role is worth and what you see it growing into so that you can be prepared to have those conversations. So also it's important to note that a mixture of these 9 options is common. So don't feel the need to pick just one or another. Pick what works for you, your business, and your growth plan. So obviously we have salary, commissions, paying expenses. So that could include paying for their board dues or their license renewal or mileage and the like. You could also have bonuses that are monthly, quarterly, or annually. But again, make sure that it's based on a quantifiable goal, it's in writing, and it's discussed at the offset. Profit sharing is another option for you, as are retirement plans, although I feel like retirement plans are less common in especially just the level 2 team. And then we're going to move on to the next slide so I can show you the rest. Insurance benefits. You can utilize KW resources to identify possible plans that they, could have access to, paid time off, and then equity in the company. So these are just 9 options to consider. In the Austin area, I did a little bit of research for you guys, just as a rough estimate. It looks like the rough average for an real estate assistant specifically is anywhere from 30 to 65,000. The average seems to be 40 to 45. And a real estate license is highly recommended, especially if you want this person to really be an extension of yourself and you want them to be able to have conversations with clients and things along those lines. A real estate license is probably a good idea. Do you guys want to talk about any of these specific compensation models in particular? I'm not going to belabor it otherwise.
I wanted to make one comment because I think it goes to Kim Treadway's question as well, about whether or not they do TC or whether or not, they do whatever thing you guys are thinking of that you already pay for. Probably not photography unless they're skilled in that, but maybe they can help you stage if you've got things that they can go stage with. When you think about compensation, you don't have to give away the farm immediately. You can start someone somewhere and give them the opportunity to earn more by doing certain things. I just had this conversation yesterday. I said, if this admin wants $75,000 a year, and this is proven talent. So remember, you're going to pay more for proven talent that's already been doing the job. You can say to them, well, okay, but I want you to do TC the way I do it. And I pay $400 a month already for that. If I do 4 or 5 transactions a month, that's $2,000 that I can then save. So by the time you get them up and running to do your standard admin things you wanted them to do, you can say, you can take back the TC I'm paying for somewhere else and earn more money. You may not want to pay them dollar for dollar exactly what you paid someone else. But those are sort of the out of the box thinking that I think a lot of realtors forget to go to. Like, give them a base salary that makes sense and give them opportunity to make more if you're worried about, is this person going to actually impact my business?
Yeah. And Sharmila asked in the chat, what would be the hourly rate if we want to hire somebody for 20 hours a week? So if you're not looking for full-time, I think $15 to $25 an hour would be average. Again, $15 if this is somebody who's really just going to be doing a lot of administrative functions, and then pushing towards that higher end if they're going to be doing more specialized things for your business.
I have a question about like the insurance,
Mm-hmm.
things like that. Is there a mandatory, or what are the rules if they work 40 hours a week? Are we obligated to pay for insurance? Do we have to? Not that I wouldn't, but are there rules about that? About a certain number of hours a week, then you have to provide benefits?
Yes. Oh, go ahead, Jen.
I believe the answer is yes. I don't know if you've already researched that, Vanessa, but I believe, Barbara, the answer is yes, that you have to provide benefits if you are W-2ing someone into your business. So a lot of realtors that are doing this can be 1099, a base salary plus commission bonuses. So that's a way you can get around having to provide benefits right away if you don't have that capability.
Yeah, this is where I put my very CYA disclaimer of I would recommend checking out SHRM or some other HR, or having a conversation with an attorney of some sort, just to make sure that you are covered in anything that you're doing for your business. But generally, like Jen said, doing a 1099 option keeps you pretty safe.
Yep. Yeah. And Paula pointed out too, it depends on employees. So these rules change all the time. So like Vanessa said, check out If you have a CPA that knows these kinds of rules, I would ask them, or an attorney or a employment attorney. You will want an employment contract anyway, so you're probably going to call an employment attorney regardless. So definitely have that list of questions. I think this is a really good one.
Mhm.
I've got a couple of quick questions. So this is kind of the one part where my head starts to hurt, is the kind of HR legal side of everything. So are there companies we can hire that do the HR function where they can track the money we're paying for tax reasons? They can cut the checks, do stuff like that. Otherwise, if we're not an LLC, how are you seeing other agents pay these people? I think that's where I start to get a little queasy on how do we pay these people other than from your personal bank account, like how does that get structured?
Yeah, so I think, if you're getting to the point where, you are making a hire, it's probably also a good time to get a CPA. Just generally.
Yep.
So in a CPA, a lot of times can either handle the finances of paying somebody, or they can direct you to somebody who can. You can just cut them a check, but you're going to want to have somebody monitoring those records for you.
Yeah. And so Ryan, I totally understand. And in fact, beyond this class, there's been a few posts on our Facebook forum asking questions. We have 2 attorneys that are agents in the office that know how to do employment contracts. So I've asked them, and my CPA, John Ziner, who works with some folks who are in our office as well, because he understands real estate, if we can put together a class just about this. I think there's a lot of things that most of us should do before we even make that first hire: set up our LLC, have a business name, business entity, and an investment account or a business account for that entity so that you can do expenses related to the business. There's a lot of CPA level or tax level things that we should talk about that I'd say we probably aren't prepared to answer, unfortunately, today, Ryan, but we are working on putting that together for January.
Yep. Keep me on the list. I would love it.
Will do.
Yeah. I think that would be a fantastic follow-up to this course, because it does get to be very gray for sure.
We just want to do it right. Just want to hire people
Absolutely.
the right way and have them feel like they're hired the right way from a payment point of view.
Yeah.
This is always where I get stopped. I know what I want them to do and get prepared, and then I start thinking about all of this, and I'm like, I don't know what to do about this, and I stop.
Yeah, I think that, rather than getting stuck and not doing it just because of this, if you can come to an agreement that it's 1099 and it's just an hourly rate, or even 40 hours a week with non-benefits, and they are a non-exempt employee, I think that you can just go ahead with that, and you're pretty covered. But we will definitely follow up on this, because I think it's a class we should probably focus on next as a natural follow-up.
Yep, I agree.
Okay. All right. So I'm going to stop sharing for a second, and I'm going to ask for some participation. So where is the raise hand button? There is a button where you can raise your hand somewhere. Does anybody know where that is?
Yes, it's down at if you open up the participants screen, so down at the bottom, you click on participants, and then next to people's names, you should be able to raise your hand.
Yep. So everybody, if you click on participants, do you see the raise hand button?
I think it's under reactions.
Yes. Once you have that, once you have the participant list up, you can either do it through there, or you can do it on your screen. So I'm going to do like a thumbs up. I can do that on my screen over here, or we can see a raised hand in the participants list if you do it over there.
So somebody make some sort of gesture with your hand that's appropriate. I want to ask, fully honest, how many of you have taken career visioning before? Okay. All right, so we've got a couple folks. So what we're going to talk about next is a 10,000 square, or not square foot, I'm definitely a realtor, a 10,000 foot view of career visioning. This is not a substitute for CV. I definitely recommend that you take it. And in fact, Gene Rivers, who is, in my opinion, one of the best people to take CV from, is offering it in January. It's coming up. So I will plug that link to register for that in the chat. And it's also at the bottom or the last slide in this presentation. But we can't talk about making your first hire without at least touching on CV. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. I also just realized I've probably been doing this to you guys all day, and I apologize. I look at my slides really closely and I hadn't seen my camera. I'm going to try to sit back a little bit this time.
Oh,
Goodness gracious.
good. I'm going to go ahead and post that in the chat box right now.
Oh,
This
awesome. Thanks, Jen.
leverage series.
All right. So if you're making the commitment to invest in your first hire, you want to ensure that you're doing everything possible to make it wise, right? So while CV isn't a foolproof hiring tool, it does help to narrow the gap between what could potentially be a bad hire and could be a good hire. So it helps to increase the odds that you and the right talent will have a mutually beneficial relationship. So the non-CV way of hiring includes casting a wide net, narrowing that net down, having 1 or 2 interviews, possibly giving them a sample of work to complete, maybe checking references, and then making an offer. So going that route, you miss out on a few key things. You miss out on making sure that the job is a fit for that person via a third-party tool being the KPA. You miss out on understanding what led the individual to your job opportunity and what their goals are short and long term. And we also miss out on the opportunity to have open dialogue about how you can win together for years to come. So it does take time, but it's our belief that it will save you time and money in the long run by hopefully limiting your bad hires. So this is an overview of the steps of CV. And like I said, we are just going to touch on the nitty gritty of it, and not the nitty gritty of it, just the tip top of it. So you're going to have a job description, and you're going to have an idea of what your value story is. You know, what makes you the best? What do other people say makes you the best? Who are you, and why would anybody want to join your journey, right? We want to make sure that we cast a wide net. More options are good, especially because as you go through the CV process, you're really going to be narrowing down. You want to make sure you have, 5 outstanding candidates as opposed to just 3 okay candidates, right? Okay. So your screen test is you've gotten all of your resumes, you've put out your job search, and you've read through those resumes, and you've identified who you want to at least have a conversation with. So it's just a phone call to see how they are on their phone, get a gauge for what their personality is like, ask them a couple of questions about their experience and their education and skills. And from there, you're going to make a judgment call. You're going to say, yes, I want to move this person further along in the process, or maybe I'll keep them in mind for something else. Maybe I can introduce them to somebody else, but this isn't going to be a fit for me.
And a good, just a really quick good tip, and I know we're running out of time, Vanessa, but if you're overwhelmed by getting a bunch of resumes and you don't know how to look through them, the easiest thing to do is to create a dummy email in Gmail. So create your job title at Gmail and then give them something to do. So if you've got some kind of sort of test for them and they don't actually fill out the form or answer the questions, or they answer them in a way where you're like, wow, that's how you present yourself for a job interview, you can just say next. And you can eliminate a large number of people who submit their resumes to you by doing little things like that. So think about ways to help cull this out for you really quickly, so you're not spending hours going through 100 resumes, because at a time like right now when a lot of people are out of work, you're probably going to get a lot more than you expect.
Absolutely. And if once you move people to the KPA, there really is the job fit guide makes the rest of this process much more simple. I think a lot of times we're like, what are we going to talk to these people about? How do I make sure I ask the right questions? The job fit guide on the KPA tells you exactly how to validate their KPA, what questions to ask, what to talk to them about. And it's just a script. Like we have scripts in real estate, it provides a script for you to work through this hiring process.
That's right. It's very plug and play.
Yes. Anybody can do it. So, all right. So your first meeting is really the job verification and the thought process. And there are questions in the KPA to help you through this. It'll just say, ask them this, now ask them this, now ask them this. And then you have a 1 to 2 day break because this is a process, right? I mean, at this point, you've invested an hour or two with them. Getting them from the initial phone call, getting them through the KPA, and then verifying everything with them.
And you can say no at any time. So the point is also to use this as an opportunity as a red light, green light. And when you take the CV class with Jean Rivers in January, as I hope you guys all will, if you're interested in hiring, they'll talk a lot more about how to red light, green light, what questions can you eliminate, when should you add your own, that kind of stuff.
Yep. From there, you do the life story and the motivational. And this is really, I think, where the difference between the KW way of hiring and other ways of hiring, this is what sets it apart. This is where people really start to understand that, you know, you're taking an interest in them. What are their goals? What do they want to achieve? Not just professionally, but personally. And how can you guys align together? This is also great when you talk about a growth plan for your hire. You know, we hear all the time about people who their first hire is still with them. How can you expand your world to include this person? This is where you find that information out. So I love this step of CV.
Me too. Me too. And I think we all have to also remember that not everyone is motivated by the same things. So when you're asking people to go through this process with you, you'll be learning more about what motivates them, what makes them happy. Was it that they spent so much time giving back to their favorite charity? Well, part of the things that you can do to reward them is give something to that charity in their name. Maybe it's give them the time and opportunity to go spend time at that charity. It's not always a raise or a bonus that motivates everyone to do the things that they do. And so in that ending process of CV, you get to know that person at a much deeper level where you can understand what makes that person tick, because it's probably different than you. I hope it is. If you're hiring them to do the things you don't want to do anymore, probably better to have someone who's better at those things and loves doing them and is excited about doing them for you.
Yeah, 100%. So after that step, once you've green lighted whoever you're going to move through, the group and the reference and the defense, since you're just a one-person team at this point, right? It's just you don't have a team, but maybe you have a close vendor relationship or a peer who could just give you another viewpoint of this hire. Just consider who else knows your business, who may know if this person would be a good fit. References, they talk about going 3 deep in CV. There's scripts for you to follow when you're following those references. And then the defense is just taking everything that you've done with this person and looking at it objectively and with another person as another objective partner to make sure that everything stands up to the sniff test and you can move forward with the offer. The expectations conversation is another thing I think is really important. And there's a script for it in CV. And it basically just says, how does somebody win with you? How does somebody lose with you? On a scale of 1 to 10, how honest would you like me to be with you? And then you answer the same questions for yourself with them. And this helps you to really kind of outline what your relationship together is going to look like. How are you guys going to respect boundaries and everything else in place in a productive way in the workplace? And then you have your offer.
And that is honestly one of my other favorite parts of CV is the win with me, lose with me conversation. It's called expectations. And I think win with me, lose with me really gives you a key insight into that's what it should be, is how do you work? And is this person going to be able to work with you the way you want them to communicate with you? And if they're not, maybe even though you love them and you thought they were amazing, you have to spend a lot of time with this person. So take every step of this very seriously. Having a bad hire is going to cause you to be more tentative to hire a second time than if you take your time, go through the process the way you should, and hire right. You're going to be excited about the next hire because you did it well and you're excited about the person that you chose.
Allison just put in the chat that she can attest to the KPA validation process. It's very detailed, really dives deep into work ethics, strengths, weaknesses, etc. Yeah, I've been through the CV process 3 times, and I learn something new about myself every time. So I can't say enough about CV. There's people that go to CV that aren't even in our industry because they want to adopt this way of hiring within, their business. So please, please, please consider it if you haven't. If you have taken it, take it again. I'm taking it again right now, and I'll be taking it again in January. You learn something new every time. Okay, guys, we're coming up on noon and we still have a lot to cover. If you have questions about CV, please pop them in the chat and we will answer them at the end or independently if we need to. I want to make sure we talk about what happens once you make your hire. How do we train them to succeed? I want to talk specifically about setting up your training calendar and time blocking to train and inspecting what you expect. So this is kind of an idea of what your first month should look like. Day 1, you're going to have a ton of paperwork, either that you and your CPA and your attorney want you to fill out for your hire, that the market center needs for the hire if they're licensed. You're going to want to give them a tour. You're going to want to orient them with everything in your office, right? And so in the workbook that I have for you at the end of this, you're going to have templates for these things, but you're going to want to give them a login sheet. Hey, here's how you access everything that you're going to need to log in. Or here's the accounts that you need to create, and make sure you make note of your logins. You're going to want to go over the GPS with them and the 30, 60, 90. You're going to want to make sure you have their email and their calendar set up. You may already have invited them to some trainings that you think would be beneficial that are already on their calendar pre-filled. They'll update their social media to let them know that you're there with you. The other thing they'll do is start to gather their sphere so that they can input that sphere into your database to start earning referral opportunities through you. You'll have some Facebook groups that they should follow, not just for the market center, but also for their role. Like maybe there's an EA mastermind Facebook group that they should join, and then reviewing the training calendar with them. And then you just basically want to have check-ins with them. So the first week, there's going to be a lot of touches. You're going to have an AM huddle. So this is kind of like the one thing every morning where you say what your goals are and what you're going to do to achieve them. You may have a midday review with them before lunch. You may have an end of day recap with them, and then an end of week sit down. And all of these are geared around, okay, what are you working on? What do you need to accomplish them? What are you struggling with? Great, now what's next? Okay. And then as those weeks go on, you let go of their hand a little bit more until eventually maybe you just have an AM huddle and an end of week sit down or an end of month sit down. Okay. So what does days 31 through 90 look like? So in my idea, this is where you should introduce the 411. If I'm sure many of you are familiar with the 411, Jen has an incredible 411 workshop that she did a training on not too long ago. And I have the link to that training also at the end of this slide deck. So if you haven't visited it or you want to revisit it, you'll be able to. Oh, do we have questions?
Just one from Laura Lynn. If assistant working remotely, how do you hold them accountable to time worked? I think there's a lot of different ways. I mean, you can do everything from just asking them to text you when they're on the clock and text you when they're done. And especially in the beginning, you can be holding them accountable to those hours. You call them at the end of it and say, great, tell me a little bit more about what happened in those last 4 hours that you worked for me today. Or at the end of the day, when you're ready, Laura Lynn, I think you've got to inspect what you expect, and then you can let go. As the other slide showed, you can start to relinquish a little control once you know they're doing what they're supposed to and they're accomplishing the goal you set out for them.
Yep, absolutely. Okay, so day 31 to 90, this is where ideally you'll introduce your 411 at the 30-day sit down. And we're going to talk about the 411 here in a little bit, but I don't want to belabor it because Jen did an incredible training on it. But at your 30-day check-in, when we talk about they have 90 days to earn their job, these are kind of the things that you want to make sure. At 30 days, can they see the big picture? Are they grasping concepts and retaining information? And can they work at the necessary pace? You should start to have an idea about these things by this time. At 60 days, can they accomplish the goals? Are they starting to take initiative? Are they presenting possible solutions? And then remember the talent versus non-talent. And I want to pull up talent versus non-talent very quickly. I think it is worth a gander.
And this is in the Millionaire Real Estate Agent book that Vanessa is about to pull up.
Yep. Come on. Give me a blank screen somewhere, computer. There we go. Hiring services, first hire training, agent material.
So I'll talk to it while she's pulling it up too. So things like, does someone bring you problems or do they bring you solutions? That's talent if they bring you solutions. They can bring you a problem, right? I mean, everybody's going to have a problem. I don't know how to do this. This is the way I think I can accomplish the goal, though. Do you agree? That's bringing you a solution, not just, I don't know how to do it. And then they sit there and they could have Googled an answer. This is when you start to understand talent versus non-talent. There we go.
Yeah, so these are telltale signs. So non-talent versus talent, they'll bring you problems or they will find solutions. They don't fulfill your needs and they give you back pieces of your job. And sometimes this is a sneaky one. You might not realize that you've ended up doing your job all over again. Or talent, on the other hand, is going to share your goals and they're going to be a natural byproduct of fulfilling their own. Don't know what they want and they aren't searching, know what they want or is actively searching to know. They require pushing or they push you. Somebody pushes you, that can be uncomfortable, but that can also be an accelerant for growth. So they may not know where the bar is set or what you're talking about when you talk about a bar, or they're continually raising the bar that is set. They don't care who they spend time with versus they demand to be associated with talent and attracts talent to them. When they try to talk actions and results, they can't back it up versus talking the language of actions and results. So I love this table. I just think it's a good, handy reminder for so many things in life. All right, moving on. We're getting close to the end, guys. Thank you for sticking it out with me. Present. All right. So the 90-day, you want to ask yourself, are they paying for themselves or are they on the way to? Have they bought in? Are they my systems builder? And can they be the possible support system for a future second hire? If you can answer yes to these things, you're on the right track with this hire. All right, let's talk about the 411. So the 411 is a tool to track your progress of weekly, monthly, and annual goals. And I love it because it takes that big GPS, that 135, and it breaks it down into bite sizes. I have a sample GPS that I create, or sample 411 that I created for you guys. And we're going to look at this because I just want you to see how the GPS feeds to the 30-60-90 and the 30-60-90 feeds to the 411. All right. So if you have your 411, you have that big annual goal, right? Close 48 transactions, 30 listings, 18 buyers, and growing our database. You also have personal goals, and I would encourage you in your 411 time to make sure you talk about their personal goals. What are they doing to hit those? This is part of that growth plan for that person to make sure that they stay sticky to you, right? So if we look at what a January monthly goals would be, making sure every home has a lead, or making sure every lead has a smart plan or a search, making sure the virtual market update is complete, and then creating a pre-listing package and a process for keeping them stocked. So those are the 3 things that this person is going to accomplish this month. And all of those things feed to one of those priorities in the GPS. So then we break that down into a week. So week 1, in order to make sure every lead has a smart plan, we're going to segment the database by buyers and sellers. And we're going to ID who currently isn't on a smart plan. And then basically breaking this down into every week. These are the goals I'm going to accomplish to make sure I hit this to put me closer to this.
That's right. And
Go
you the video for the class that I taught in your packet for everybody after the class, right?
Yes, I do.
So there's a lot more to the 411, but I love that as an example. It's very clear and easy. So definitely take a look at all of these parts and pieces of the slide deck and what Vanessa's going to provide afterwards, because it'll give you guys some really good framework as to how to develop out your own systems and build them for you and your team.
Yep. All right, guys, we're nearing the end. So the growth plan, I think this is so important. You didn't spend all of this time investing in this hire just to have them leave you after a year or 2 years. So the right hire should grow with you if you include them and make room for them in their goals. Gary Keller is a prime example of many respectable things: how to build a company, how to live a life worth living, how to scale and grow, how to pour into people. And he believes and has proven, as have so many people within KW, that the right hire will grow with you if you include them. So Gary's very first administrative hire is still with him to this day. I have the honor of working closely with her with shared services, and she now runs multiple companies under him with numerous teams reporting to her. And that's just the perfect example of what happens when you expand your world to include others. So I really would encourage you to take the time to follow these steps, because it can be rewarding in so many ways. Because as we know, no one succeeds alone, right? One of Gary's best quotes: no one succeeds alone, no one. Okay, any questions, guys? Thank you for listening so patiently. I don't see anything in the chat. Feel free to come off of chat or off of mute if you guys have questions. I have just one more slide after this. All right, well, with that, I'm going to go ahead and say that we have an easy button for you. If after the last hour of listening to Jen and I, you're feeling more overwhelmed than you did before this training, the good news is we can help you. So one of the first services that we're going to roll out is talent procurement. And we have 2 services to fit your needs. So we have procurement and we have management. And essentially what we're going to do is, with procurement, we're going to consult with you to understand what the role is and what your needs are. We will help create the job description. We'll help outline your GPS and your 30, 60, 90 for the role. And we will take talent through the CV process for you. And at the end, we're going to present you 2 qualified candidates that you can then select from and move forward with. And our involvement will end at presenting you those 2 qualified candidates. And it's a $2,500 fee if that's something that you guys want to do. The second package that we're going to offer is taking them all the way through their first 90 days. So everything that's included in the procurement phase, plus we're going to help onboard them. We're going to help train them. We're going to give the first 90 days of support for the hire and for the agent. So making sure that you guys are starting to bridge the gap and come together, and we'll help create their 411 development. So that will be a $5,000 fee for basically 90 to 120 days of involvement to help get you to where they are just up and running. So if this is something that you're interested or want to chat more about, we are rolling this out. As of right now, I'm going to be overseeing it. And then we're working to find a talent manager, somebody who understands the CV process and has lived in the KW world, who will be able to oversee this, because we see a big need for it. But hopefully this training has given you guys an outline of what you need to go about making your first hire. And here are the slide or the links to Jean Rivers' training once again, to Jennifer's 411 class. I'll make sure that this is a more visible link. The color changed when I click it. And then here's the materials to everything we discussed today for templates and outlines. Okay, guys, any questions before we go? Any feedback? Good, bad, or otherwise? Lay it on me.
Was this helpful?
So what are some of the places to look for? Is it Indeed? Is it care.com? Is it, use your existing contractor close and say, hey, would you be able to, I mean, I'm not thinking about full-time right now. I don't think I have enough income to support that, but maybe start off with, 15, 20 hours a week. What would you recommend?
Yeah, I think Indeed is a great option. I think LinkedIn is a great option. I'll be very honest. We know so many people, right? I think even reaching out to your sphere, asking people that you know who they know. And that can be a really rich resource for potential talent. Jen, do you have any other recommendations?
Yeah, no, I definitely agree. We use Indeed frequently. The other one I've seen people using recently is posting on Nextdoor. Everybody knows somebody right now that needs work or is looking for work, just because of especially the hospitality industry being hurt so badly through COVID. And there's a lot of talented people who are looking for work right now. So post something on Indeed and ask your neighbors, if you like your neighbors, who they know as well. I think that's also a good option.
Yeah. Any other questions, guys?
I was just going to ask, are you going to send out the links in a follow-up email?
Yes.
Or-
So all of you will get an email from me later today. I also put the link to the presentation in the chat, but you will all get a separate email with the recording of the presentation. Oh no, my recording paused. Did this not record?
No, I have it recording.
Oh, good. Okay, good. Panic moment. But yes, you guys will get that this afternoon.
Yes, we'll post it up. And again, if you guys have any questions, reach out to your team leader. I know a couple of you guys on here from the Northwest Market Center, and I know Greg's from Lake Travis. Reach out to your team leader. And if you've got additional questions, we are also going to be doing some awesome training programs in the future. So we want to give back, not just ask you guys to pay us to help you hire. But once Vanessa has transaction coordination up and running, if you want to hire your own transaction coordinator, we'll also help you train them. So we're just going to be looking for continual ways to help our agents leverage. If you have an idea for us that you think would be really important for us to add to the list, let us know. We want to be continually giving back by doing classes like this and trainings for you guys for free. And then we'll also offer some services that take a little more time at a cost. And we're really excited to be able to bring that to you. And of course, also just help. So contact your team leader as well if you would like just a coaching session on continuing this conversation.
Yeah, and guys, I know I put that up there that we're charging for this. If you have just a quick question or you want to revisit something we talked about, I'm always available for a conversation. Keep my number. I'm not going to charge you by the minute to just talk and help you through and troubleshoot. I'm happy to do it anytime.
Yeah, love that.
Well, thank you guys for your time. I want to be respectful. We ran over. Thank you so much, and I will email you this afternoon.
Thank you, Vanessa. Do you have everyone's email here as well, or?
I do. You all registered, and so I have it through the email you registered with.
Perfect. Thank
Yeah.
you so much.
Absolutely. Have a wonderful day, guys.
Thank you.
See you.
Bye.
Bye.